Hey everybody, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Tamara Collective where dreams have no filter. So listen, today's video I want to talk about what we need versus what we desire and why we feel like we need to separate the two, the need versus the desire. Why do we separate the two? So let's get into this. First, I want to say this. What you desire is a necessity. So let's get that out the way now. I'm going to say it one more time. What you desire is a necessity. And I'll get to why that is a fact, why that's true in a minute. So why do we separate need versus desire? First, that separation of the two, putting needs and desires into two different columns, it contributes to us not allowing ourselves to imagine big, to dream big, and to even give ourselves the freedom to say out loud exactly what we want, no matter how general or specific we choose to be. All right? And I'm going to use this example, and I'm taking this example from my own life. So let's say that you pursued a dream that you had, all right? And you allowed yourself to become disheartened because while pursuing that dream, you did not get the results that you wanted. So then you say, to compensate or to attempt to maybe ignore how you're really feeling and to ignore the disappointment and the resentment, you say, well, I didn't need that dream anyway, or I didn't need that business anyway. I didn't need all of that anyway. When secretly, you can't stop thinking about that dream. In fact, your dream and the way that you imagine the luxury that you want to experience in life, the ease that you want to experience in life, how you want to be, how you want to exist, how you want to live, how you want to use your time, it's become bigger. The vision has become even more expanded. Okay? So, just like I said, what you desire is a necessity. Understand that to live beyond necessity is an inherent desire. Why? Because we're meant to expand. We're meant to expand. If you look at nature, let's take an oak tree. An oak tree starts off as an acorn, okay? And let me just give you a few numbers about an oak tree. And I wasn't going to talk about this yet, but I'm bringing this up now. So an oak tree, I read somewhere that it can grow 100 feet plus. That's just the height. The width can grow up to, I believe it was 150 feet. The trunk can be 12 feet in the thickness. The branches alone can be 100 feet. That's an oak tree from a little acorn. An acorn doesn't say, well, I'm going to ignore the possibilities because this just seems too big, or I'm just going to stay here because I'm just going to stay as an acorn because I don't need to grow that big. Acorn doesn't say that. An acorn just surrenders to the possibility and becomes a massive oak tree. The numbers that I just rattled off, I don't know about you, but it's challenging for me to even fathom that. All right. So let's get back to the example that I was going to go into. To live, I'm going to say this again. To live beyond your necessity is inherent. It's natural, which is why you have to view your expanded image and you have to view your desire for more as a natural progression, as a human, as a super being. Because expansion is natural. Like with the acorn, that is a natural process. It's a natural transformation. Now, where does this need versus desire, where does that come from? We already know it comes from programming, which begins with us as children. When we're talking about programming, talking about our childhood, this is not to blame anybody. It's just to observe and be aware of where it comes from. So, for example, and I'm going to say this before I bring up the example. Programming happens in childhood. It carries on into adulthood. All right. So this example can be applied to our childhood and adulthood. So as a child, remember a time when you asked for something. Doesn't matter what it is. You asked for something. And when it came down to it, you may have heard something of the sort. Someone telling you, well, you don't need that. That moment, it may not have, well, I won't say it didn't mean anything then, but you may not have put two and two together, or you may not have made the connection. But hearing that, well, you don't need that, making that connection, that impressed upon your subconscious that there is a difference between desiring and needing. And that what you need, is what you should be asking for, not something beyond a necessity. As if something beyond a necessity is not important. Then we get to, okay, well, and this comes in more so, I think, or from my experience, this part comes in more so when we are growing into adulthood. Then we start to adopt this idea that desiring more means that we're greedy. That is not true, and I've talked about this before on my channel. Greed, just a side note, that's not what this video is about, but greed, understand that greed comes from lack mentality. Just to simply say, well, I desire this is more, I desire more than where I'm currently at, that is coming from a space of abundance, because you recognize yourself as an abundant being and you are surrendering to your elevation. But greed says, I want this before everyone else gets it, because there's not enough. I'm going to step on everybody's necks and heads to get whatever it is that I want. I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to do what I have to do. See the difference? Okay. Now that we have that covered, another example is, as an adult, if you were asked for something, you may have been told, well, you have to be grateful for what you have. That goes without saying. To want more does not mean that you're not grateful for where you're at. If anything, when you are approaching your desire, when you're seeing your desire as an abundant being, and when you're approaching your desire from a state and an identity of abundance, not only are you appreciating where you're at, but you're grateful for all the energies that you're able to use from where you're at to be able to experience the elevation and elevation and elevation and elevation. It continues, okay? And when someone says, well, when you say what you want, then someone comes back, well, you have to be grateful for what you have. Who said that wanting more or desiring more beyond what you need or what you have at the moment is ungrateful? Again, that comes from programming. So, let's get into another point here. Need versus desire, it influences that idea of you can have this or you can have that. So let's explore a few examples. So you can be a mother or you can have a thriving career. I know that it's 2023, but I have heard some conversations and some ideas where there are still people who exist with that fallacy, that particular one. Another example is you can be wealthy, you can have a lot of money, or you can be a nice person. The same thing with being in leadership, with having a position of power. You can either be powerful or you can be a pleasant person. Here's another example. You can have a business or you can have a family. You see these ors. You can have this or you can have that. It puts limits on we know what is possible for us. And intuitively, we understand intuitively, our soul knows that the possibilities for us, if we just allow ourselves, regardless of whether we have a family or not, regardless of, whether we have a career or not, regardless of how much money is in our bank account at the moment, we know intuitively that the possibilities for us are endless. But we often don't want to voice that because to other people it could sound as if we're being delusional. We can perhaps sound as if we're not being practical or logical. All right? We automatically shut down those possibilities because of this or programming. So, I'm going to leave you with this. Actually, a few things. Now, I'm not into giving people homework or giving you something else to do, but I would just invite you just to spend a few moments to get by yourself and just be honest with yourself and ask your higher self, ask the universe, where have I limited myself with separating my need versus a desire? Why have I separated those two? Where in my life have I allowed myself to be disheartened to be able to say exactly what I want? Just take some time and answer those questions. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out process. Only if you want it to. That's a whole another thing. If you want it to be, if you want to take a full day to answer those questions for yourself, do that. But just know, if you do it, an exercise like that, I always encourage people to go take it to old school. Put pen to paper. Because there's something about writing out your thoughts, your emotions. There's a different type of exploration and transformation and emergence that happens with pen to paper. All right. At the top of the paper, write this: what I desire is a necessity. I know I've said that over and over again, but that's so important. What you desire is a necessity. What I desire is a necessity because my expansion is inherent. All right. So just remember that. Let me know what your takeaways are in the comments. Thank you so much again for all of my new subscribers that have come on board. Those of you that have been here, I appreciate you for listening, for being here. Share this video. All right. And until next time, cheers.